All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Higher Caliber. Today, I'm sitting here with Tim and Dustin.
What's up?
Hello.
How's it going, guys? So we want to talk about the Second Amendment and why it was never enough. All right, so we've had a lot of people kind of asking us when we're going to talk more about guns, even though I'm telling people consistently this isn't a gun podcast, but
it is.
It is. I thought about doing a history version of the Second Amendment, but that's kind of boring and it's everywhere. So I specifically brought Dustin on for his libertarian-esque views on the Second Amendment. And I think we agree on pretty much everything when it comes to that. What are you guys' thoughts?
I'll open this can of SpaghettiOs with every gun law is an infringement.
Hell yeah.
100%. Zero restrictions for any firearms as long as you're not hurting somebody else, unless you are a child rapist or child molester, in which case you should be murdered in the woods and not be allowed to have guns. Outside of that, everybody, your priest should have guns, your grandmother should have guns, the bus drivers should have guns, your teachers should have guns.
Should kids have guns?
If they've gone through training, yeah, I think if there's a certain age, maybe we should consider that an age of application. They've gone through some training and signed off like you would for a fishing license.
Do you feel like owning guns is a civic duty?
I do.
Like voting and jury duty?
I absolutely think that it is. I think that law and order was never intended to be completely and entirely supported by taxpayer-funded militia groups who wear badges. Right. It was designed, in my opinion, to 99% be upheld and enforced by an aggressively armed and trained citizenry.
Right, the population.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been people forever now, for as long as America's been born, arguing the merits of the Second Amendment. Well, I don't know about forever, because there was a really, really big time period where people weren't arguing about it at all. But two different people read the Second Amendment and get two different things out of it. People will go, well, that clearly means that we have the right to have militias. And then people probably like us will read it and be like, it says right here in English, shall not be infringed. The way I'm kind of seeing it now is democracy sucks, right? Because it's mob rule. So if 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate wanted to get rid of the Second Amendment or amend it to say only the government should have guns, would everybody be okay with that? Because I feel like people have this mantra where they're like, well, the Second Amendment says, it's like, okay, you're right, it does say that, and I agree with you, but would you be okay if everybody determined tomorrow that you don't have a Second Amendment anymore? It's unlikely, but it's possible. So are these same people okay with that?
Well, first and foremost, establish the premise that if that were to happen, it would only happen because of the fact that we do not have equal and adequate representation of our values and our belief structures in government, and we haven't for three whole generations.
Yeah, I was going to say for a long time. Yeah.
For three whole generations, that's been an issue. I mean, that is a thing that could tenably happen as our government has effectively turned into an authoritative state.
Right.
So it just, with the appearance of democratic governance. But no, I truthfully believe that the vast majority of people would not be okay with that. I mean, I know several people. I obviously can't speak for the entire nation. That'd be ridiculous. But I know several people who outwardly, due to circles that they had to operate in or workplaces, proclaim to be in some capacity in support of constricting gun rights or this, that, and the other thing, but vote in the opposite, vote for, total freedom of no restrictions and everything. I mean, I always try to caution them because their public opinions hinder the cause, if you will.
Right.
They say that they vote differently in, when it comes to voting for politicians or this, that, and the other thing. So I don't think currently right now you would have, if it were to pass, it would pass by fiat order instead of support of the citizenry.
Right.
But it is absolutely possible. I mean, look at a lot of other laws that they shove down our throat all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there was other amendments that weren't so popular that they got rid of because, they had justification for it. It seems so simple to me that the people who wrote that were at the time telling a monarchy to go fuck themselves.
Mhm.
And the only thing they had was the citizens to have guns. And the people that formed these militias were people with guns.
Yeah.
And that's a talking point, and you hear it all the time, but it is true. And then people say, well, there's an overwhelming support for common sense gun control in America. So they poll these people and they ask them, I feel like they're kind of loaded questions, because they ask them, do you believe in, gun or common sense gun laws? And they go, yeah, absolutely. And it's like almost 60% of people say that. But then when you ask them, do you think people should have the same firearms as police officers? They go, yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of distorted. And I believe one of them was specifically from a few years ago, like a Pew Research poll that was like, do you think people should have pistols that hold more than 15 rounds? And they're like, no. Should people have the same handguns cops have? And they're like, well, absolutely. That's only fair. So they're full of shit is basically what I'm saying.
People tend to reiterate what they're programmed to reiterate.
Right.
And every person who's lived past the age of 20 knows that almost every person who publicly gives an opinion is full of baloney.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take your rights and apply them evenly in comparison to other rights to see that the gun control argument is a logical fallacy. I mean, if you were to, you can put 100 people in a room and you can get 80 people in that room to agree in various different levels and capacities about why any form of firearms or weapons should be.
Depending on how you ask the question.
Exactly. But then if you were to take another right that's equally important, like your right to vote, and sample that same group of people, should I constrict this age group? Should you not be able to vote until you're 21? Should you not be able to vote if you have this in your life? Should there be income inequality in voting? Should you not be able to vote unless you go through a voting training program that's approved by a government, and then your local sheriff signs off and gives you a certificate that says you've been trained to vote?
And honestly, that's one of the reasons we got so hot and heavy on the subject, because we were going to talk about constitutional carry as it pertains to Ohio. And the whole thing just gets me hot when I think about it, because on one hand, when people come to us and they get training, I know these people have some level of proficiency.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the government should not take your rights from you and sell it back to you.
For certain. And honestly, scaling the degree of severity, that's actually pretty low on the scale. I mean, if you going back to the voter argument, bad voters kill 1 million times more people a year than bad gun owners. No,
Yeah.
But you're not going to walk into a room of people and them go, constrict voting rights right now. This needs to happen. We need to curtail voting rights. We need to have voter education. You're not going to see that. It's training. It's training in our government-based propaganda re-education camps that we call K through 12. And
Heard
then
that.
our advanced government re-education camps that we call colleges.
Yeah.
Especially state and government funded colleges, which are most of them now. And that's really what that comes down to. You're programmed to support the state, and the state does not support an armed citizenry. And
it's funny when you say that, because you say state in its original meaning. Like you're not talking about an individual state. And that is what they meant from what scholars say, the people of a free state. They're not talking about, well, that means right there that Ohio says you can't have guns and California says that you can. That was their original intent.
Wherever your feet are standing in America,
Right.
the state doesn't want you to be an armed, trained citizen with the capacity to defend your rights against a tyrannical government.
Right. Do you think a lot of it has to do with people seeing themselves as a victim of a gun crime and not so much their own defender? For the first time you wear a gun outside of the house, it's apparent that it is your responsibility and your safety is in your hands.
Right.
But I think for a vast majority of people that don't understand this stuff, they don't see it like that. They see it as they could potentially be a victim of a crime. So if there was less guns, I think the last time I checked, there was like 440 million guns, and there's 350 million Americans. I think it's a victim thing.
I think there's an almost infinitesimal list of categories you could put people into why they don't support personal carry or their own education carry. Some of the bigger ones are fear mongering based. Obviously, the government programs you to be scared of guns, and then your tribalism, the peer group that you want to fit into.
They also program, along with being scared, is they're going to protect you.
Yes, they're responsible for your safety.
Because the same people that say defund the police say the government should only have guns.
But I will tell you, an equally big quotient of people, and these are people that are almost always converted from pro two-way, pro carry people, are people that had any form of interaction with law enforcement while carrying a firearm, and that interaction became negative because of the behavior of the law enforcement officer, or because the citizen forgot to let them know they had a firearm or something, and they ended up realizing how dicey that situation can get and how unprofessional a lot of law enforcement officers can be with a person who just simply forgot to say something. And that scared them. They became scared. I mean, a lot of people, got pulled over for a traffic ticket and ended up catching felony charges for this, that, and the other thing because they were worried and forgot to say that they had their firearm locked in a box in the back. And so that's a large group of people. And I know a lot of people who have gone through that situation, and that gets put out there. That gets put out there on the internet, the Reddits, the YouTubes. Look what happened to me. And this is what the state's going to do to you. If you choose to take on course action to defend yourself,
personal responsibility.
Yeah. And you're scared. Now you're not only scared of the situation you could create in a violent altercation trying to defend yourself, but you're scared of the ramifications that the state will impose on you for taking the responsible due course to protect yourself in the event of that happening. So they punish you for practicing your right. And again, if you apply that logic to any other right or any other amendment that supports you or your freedom of movement, your rights, it becomes a logical fallacy.
Right.
If a law enforcement officer pulled me over and I forgot to tell him that I was on my way to vote, am I going to catch a felony? That's ridiculous.
I doubt it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of fear categories. Fear of the government, fear of retaliation, fear of legal recourse, fear of everything. And all of it is designed to reduce the proper education and proper armament of the citizenry.
Yeah. And education's a big thing because with proper education, and if we're going to spend money on anything, not the 51st state, Ukraine, if we're going to spend money,
I can't wait to be there as a tourist.
If we're going to spend money on anything, why isn't it more education?
Right.
Like if the majority of the kids are already in public schools, why do we not put more emphasis on education? The accidental, over 50% of gun deaths are by suicide.
Yeah.
And the unintentional ones, I feel like at least half of that, if not more, can be curbed with just some education. And I'm kind of torn on it too, because I don't want the government to subsidize that because they haven't been able to run any program successfully. So I don't want them, mandating how much training somebody should get. But at the same time, I feel like we can make a little extra room for it.
We have grants for every ridiculous. I don't even get me started on that. We have grants and leaky pipes just blowing trillions of dollars a year into every form of ridiculous expenditure known to man for things that in no way, shape, or form benefit the human race. 0.00001% of that funding could go to funding private enterprises to properly educate and arm our poor people, our minority communities, which is an intentionally racist maneuver by our government to underserve our minority communities.
Right.
You had brought up the educational aspect, and just to put a bullet point out there on another spectrum of education is people always make the argument about we don't want guns in schools, we don't want armed teachers. I myself would like to know what type of teacher would not be willing to do anything or by any means defend a child.
Right.
And I think if a lot of people view that parallel, I'm leaving my child with another human for 8 to 10 hours a day, depending on whatever the system is and whatever. and that person is not willing to defend my child by any means necessary, and they don't think about it that way.
Right.
If I've never met you, I will run somebody over in a Walmart parking lot with my truck 5 times and murder them if I think they're going to hurt your kid.
Absolutely.
I've never met you and your kid at all.
Protect the kids.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. I will run over 25 people to save somebody's random kid. And I don't know your kid, never met him. Why are your teachers who supposedly love your kids and support your kids and are cultivating your kids' education?
They love them so much they're putting them on cross-sex hormones.
Exactly.
Hey, teachers.
Yeah.
Leave those kids alone.
Yeah. Why are your teachers not willing to do anything necessary to protect them kids?
Do you think everybody would be okay with mandatory, I hate that word, but mandatory swim lessons in case a kid encounters a swimming pool?
I mean,
do you think parents would be okay if there was swimming lessons in school?
They would be.
So they don't drown?
Yeah, they're absolutely would be.
Well, people will say, well, if you don't, you're more likely to get killed by your own gun that's in your home. So if you just didn't have it, then you would be okay. Yeah. And that's kind of my argument with that. You would be a lot less likely to drown if you didn't have a swimming pool in your backyard.
Yeah.
But nobody's telling you can't go for a little dip in the pool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the logic, you can't argue. You can never argue gun function, gun safety, gun ownership, or an armed citizenry from a safety standpoint anyway, because the government gives up all of their spades with that from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Automobiles kill infinitely more people in every state than firearms do. And every year we hand 1 million 16-year-olds with enough IQ points to fire up an Atari, barely, a 4-wheeled murder machine, and turn them loose on a road and go, hey, we have expectations for you. Yeah. You've got minimal training, and please don't kill every single person with, while you go out there.
And that's when it comes to driving, that's kind of what I tell people too. They're like, why do you need that? It's like, okay, your car does $120. Mm-hmm. Do you speed? Well, not really. I don't go 120. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Why do you need a car that goes 120 then?
Yeah. Well,
because America. Oh, now it's about America. Yeah. Because you think you can make the right choice. Well, the government says you can't.
Right. Well, see, the logical fallacy comes into play when, look, I know there's wiggle room and arguments in every direction here. This is nowhere near a cut and dry black and white scenario here, but that 16-year-old could take that automobile and they could plow through 150 people at the county fair. Okay. That's just as possibly, nobody bats an eye at that. Everyone goes, that's crazy. They wouldn't do that. They've been taught not to. Light bulb. There's the source of your problem.
Right. Why
won't that kid murder 150 people? Because you're not supposed to do that. Right. Because his dad taught him not to. Because the government says don't do that. Okay. Yeah. So then why do we have an issue with him having a 30-round magazine? Because he's not supposed to. It's the same. It's the same logical fallacy. I mean.
Right. Now, Tim, what do you think about your elected Republican governors and senators getting up in front of Congress and saying, well, we don't need that for hunting. So we're okay with banning that.
It's bullshit, man.
Yeah. 1934, they had the National Firearms Act because they wanted to get Tommy guns out of the hands of criminals.
What a time to be alive.
So I know when you could order it from Sears. So that's when they got rid of interstate transfer of that's when the short barreled rifles, short barreled shotguns, all that stuff went away. In 1986, they made it so you couldn't transfer, manufacture machine guns. But the 1986 amendment to the NFA was endorsed by the NRA because they're like, you know what? You're right. You don't need a machine gun to hunt deer.
Unpopular opinion that the NRA has always been, since its creation, nothing more than funded controlled opposition.
Yeah.
Unquote.
Yeah.
It's all about the boats.
I agree. And I think for the most part, I don't know. It's made up of people. Some people are good. Some people are bad. But you can't endorse the NFA and be good. You can't. Thanks a lot, Reagan.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion.
That's a pretty popular opinion nowadays, actually.
Would you be okay if the NFA process didn't require any money?
No. Like Dustin said earlier, I think any sort of control, like I basically think if you're 18 years old and you're not a pedo, you should be able to go to the gas station, show your ID like you're buying cigarettes, and you should get a gun, a machine gun if you want to.
Hell
Just
yeah.
completely unfettered, full auto machine gun.
Let's be honest. Nobody can afford to feed the thing anyway.
Right. But that's also
not anymore.
That's also another form of control.
Yeah.
The thing that separates a machine gun from a regular semi-auto gun is like a $5 piece of metal.
Right.
So,
right. It's not like magic.
The government doesn't want really poor people and minorities to have the same guns they do.
Yes.
That's what this all boils down to.
Yeah.
Gun control is
And
racism.
Also, first generation immigrants as well. They don't want first generation immigrants, minorities, and a large subsection of the female population to be armed.
Right.
Well, let's jump down this rabbit hole.
Okay.
What do you feel, or I have feelings that
you're a statist.
There are. What did you say? A sadist?
I'm so infringed right now.
A statist.
No, I feel, put your tinfoil hat on here.
It's been on, brother.
I definitely feel like the government plans these tragedies around.
Okay, be careful with that. The only reason I'm saying is be careful is because Alex Jones got sued for $1 billion for saying that.
I know, but okay, let's talk about the shooting in Vegas.
Oh boy,
where'd that go?
You don't need to know about that.
Wasn't that the largest mass shooting on U.S. soil?
And they say that he had a bump stock, which was never recovered. His house, with all the evidence, just happened to burn down the next day or the day after.
I mean,
the short answer is it went exactly where it was intended, directly into the already pre-existing written firearms and firearms capacity restrictions that were sitting in a 2,782 page, what I would call manifesto.
Yeah.
That was a federal gun regulation bill split between 7 different bills. That was written waiting for a tragedy to happen.
That's when Trump said to take away the guns without due process.
Right.
And then the bump stock ban happened. That got overturned.
So
don't ask questions you don't want to know. Do you really want to know the answer? Well, because I don't have it.
I mean, we're sitting here talking about, gun rights and this, that, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Does it ultimately fucking matter? I mean, are we trying to fight a fight that you can't even win?
What we're trying to say is all this stuff is an infringement anyway. And the people that we're having a conversation now, but the people that bicker over the merits of the Second Amendment and, he should be able to own this, he shouldn't be able to own that. This is the way I look at it. I don't think it's just America. I think every person living in this world should have the right to anything they want to use to defend themselves. It's not about, I'm American, I have the Second Amendment, and you don't. You have, whether you believe in God or not, you are born with a certain set of rights that nobody should be able to tell you what to do.
Right.
And I just don't understand how you have all these, our founding fathers that were like, this is bullshit.
Right.
Nobody should tell us what to do. And then people go, they were talking about militias. Bullshit. It's
the same people, like we talked about before, that wanted a $15 minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? It's here. We increased the price of every fucking thing, and now nobody can afford anything.
Right.
It's the same people that.
But the point I want to get across is those people are too far gone. I don't want to try to. It's a waste of breath trying to persuade them one way or another. The one thing that usually persuades them is when they get their ass beat and they don't have a gun. And they go, maybe that's not such a bad idea. But the people, the big R Republicans that bicker amongst themselves they aren't conserving anything. You know what I mean? They're just
I've always
letting
said
it leak out instead of just letting it wide open. But they take away 99 or they take away 100 rights and give us one back. And we're supposed to kiss their feet.
Republicans are just liberals that do the same thing slower.
Yeah.
That's all they are.
That's true.
No difference.
They're fighting the wars that they lost 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
I appreciate the Second Amendment and people that fight for it. If you want to have we are the militia tattoo on your forearm, more power to you. You're my kind of people. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you told me that it didn't exist tomorrow, that ain't happening. Like, but on the same token, do I want to own a machine gun? Yes. But me not being in prison and being home with my family is more important than me having one.
Yeah.
But I want to know what line do we get to? It's like, if you tread on me 36 more times, I swear to God, I'm going to do something about it.
But see,
you know what I mean?
That's
I'm not inciting violence, just so everybody knows.
That's how every American citizen accepts the mark.
Yeah.
Okay? You never, to turn a phrase, obviously I'm being hyperbolic here, but nobody ever is going to show up and say, give me the mark. They're going to feed you pieces of it until you are the mark. You can't exist without it. You can't do commerce, buy Skedios for your kids, enroll your child in school, have access to the internet, buy gasoline for your car, register your dog with the county and take the mark.
I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not registering my dog with the county.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that. That's a whole other podcast for the record. Yeah.
I'm just feeling
taxation without representation.
I'm feeling very infringed lately, an unsettling amount.
The problem with the Second Amendment is, and I support the Second Amendment being repealed in its entirety, and I'll tell
fixed.
And fixed.
Write it like a sixth grader would understand it.
It's
or
not
a 6-year-old.
We have allowed the Second Amendment to be curtailed down into this minuscule argument that it was never meant to be, that it just protects militia rights.
Yeah.
The Second Amendment was training wheels. It's your training wheels. George Washington was your daddy. Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, they're your daddy. They were walking behind you.
Yeah.
You're on your bicycle with your training wheels and they're saying, good job, little American citizen. Good job. Now grow up and put cannons on your cart and fight against the tyranny and the government.
And and that's the thing that I hate to hear. Like, you hear our president saying things like, you couldn't own a cannon. Yes, you could. Before, during, and after the fucking Second Amendment was even ratified, private citizens could own warships.
Yeah, and they did. We had privatized.
And they should.
Yeah, yes.
That would be pretty bad.
More security in this country needs to be privatized anyway. When you go somewhere that's gun-free and you can't bring your gun anywhere, it's at that point where I'm like, well, you're my daddy now. I guess protect me because you just stripped away everything I had to protect myself with. They're the scariest place to be.
Well, look at the hypocrisy in the fact that our government does not want us to be an armed, trained, privatized, armed to the T citizenry, but they have no problem subcontracting third-party privatized, trained militias to send them everywhere else under the sun.
Yes.
To handle the business.
The dirty work.
And, we've seen that.
This water's getting awfully black.
Yeah. So, again, good for them, but not for me.
Right. What do you say to the people that say, fight against the government? They have jets and nukes.
So, first of all, you're gonna think this is crazy because of my history, my time in service in the military and the fact that I'm super pro 2A. But I am like 100% anti-violence. I have in my age become I'm just like complete pacifist. And you know me as a person because you're my little brother pretty much. You've known me my whole life. I'd rather just sit in my garage and weld and drink energy drinks and listen to podcasts about marshmallow factories, But freedom do what freedom do.
Yeah.
And, you got to protect what you have. So it's a trap. It's a trap. That question is a trap. And that question was engineered to create the soundbite of tricking someone into say, rise up against the government because you just fed into the CIA's misinformation campaign into their mechanism that lets them go, oh, crazy anti-government radical ding dong over here. Get them bracelets. I don't want anybody to fight against the government. I want the government to do the right thing and support and defend its citizenry and its rights, which is what they are constitutionally obligated to do. Violence should not have to be a part of that process. The voting process should take care of that. The legislative process should take care of that. And our court systems should uphold, support, and endorse. So I am never a fan of violence unless it's the absolute last measure.
It's a nonviolence principle.
Yeah, I'm a non-violent Adventist, if you will, but I will put 37 holes in your face if you try to
Right.
murder me or someone's kid.
And I feel the same way. I don't think people should be hostile towards each other. People have a right to their own property
Yeah,
and their own their own person.
yeah,
And you should be able to do what you want.
yeah. I'm like that with just about everything. I don't care if I made the joke earlier to you. I don't care if you're enriching uranium in your basement, as long as you got the correct shielding in place and it's not coming over in my yard and it's not going out my faucet.
Yeah.
You do you, bud. I mean, hey, that's cool. Can I borrow your game genie? I'm trying to get past Ninja Turtles here. I 100% support that. You know, I am what some people would describe as ignorant levels of freedom. But if you're not bothering me, it ain't my business.
Right.
I want to have my chickens, and I want to do my stuff, and I want to support people and loan my neighbor my lawnmower and be the okay guy in the street and just be a normal citizen that pays my taxes and mows my grass and does what I'm supposed to do until you.
I think of it more as a deterrent, because if our own federal government has to go to war with us and in the end win, they're going to have nothing left to rule over when they completely destroy their own citizens. You know what I mean?
One could make the argument that the destabilization of the American populace would lead into a better beneficial global government for the powers that be. And that may be a supportive solution for
You had me out. Now I'm back in.
the oligarchs that currently govern.
It's like burning off
our
a field,
globalist
comes back
system.
better.
Yep. So it's not wise at this juncture in history to say that what appears to be the American government would not do such a vast operation to their citizenry because it doesn't benefit them. When realistically, if you pan your telescope out, the larger government is the globalist oligarchs that own everything, who puppet the American government. And it would very much benefit them to destabilize our power system and our global economic trade systems on a global level.
But would it be fair to say, without what we have going now with the Second Amendment, that we would be China overnight?
No, China's better than us. Yeah, China
Economically, but I mean
production wise, which secures them economically.
their GDP, but I mean how it treats its citizens.
It would take, if you were to turn America into China in 1920 right now, it would take us 10 times longer to recover than it took China.
All the money that we spent on the global war on terror, I forget how many trillion it was. It's 4, 6, whatever trillion. They spent that same amount of money building bridges and roads and infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because I think they figured out that instead of fighting all these unnecessary wars, they're going to spend all their money on their economy. It's a crazy concept. That's why they're winning, and they're going to win. Because we want to fight proxy wars with Ukraine.
And China has a vested interest in supporting it, even though it's a dictatorship. It is obviously a communist dictatorship.
Hey, you know what the difference between the U.S. and China is? We have one more party than they do.
I was just say the color of our money. China has one thing that America doesn't have anymore, and it's what at once made us. All of America's history revolved around this single unifying principle, and it's that we were one. The globalist oligarchs, if you will, who puppet our politicians, have destabilized America to a point that if we started right now, it would take multiple generations for us to get back to a place where we possess the ability to put all of our differences aside and fight for a unifying cause. China has cornered the market on that. And you could argue economics, you can argue education, you could argue family values, you can argue whatever you want all day long. But at the end of the day, that anchor point, that cornerstone is why China would tuck our tail between our legs any given day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
They would whip us up one side and down the other.
The only thing they don't have going for them is their replacement numbers because of how many kids they
For certain. Yeah.
didn't have.
Population capacities far outweigh their means of supply. But
For now, but
right.
they're not producing. I think I can't remember the age, but it's like majority of the population is like 30 or
Right.
26 or whatever.
But see, the thing is, all they need to increase their hegemony is just they need to take their economy, which they have already been doing. Xi Jinping's been doing this, not to derail too far.
China.
Xi Jinping has already been doing this for, years. And you take that Chinese money and you invest it all over the world. You invest it all over Europe. You invest it all over the United States of America. You invest it in all the propaganda outlets, Hollywood, Netflix, Hulu, all of them. And you buy up the land, you buy up the farms, you buy up the propaganda
You're
machines.
just saying things that they're just doing already.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You buy up the education systems, you invest in all the post-high school education systems, and then you own everything. And that is how you can sustain a population bigger than what your land mass can sustain agriculturally, economically, because you're buying and pulling the resources from every other country on earth, and their economy, their buying power of the Chinese economy is what allows them to do that. So, but yeah, so you say all that to tie that in this neat bow. That's just another example of one massively powerful outside source that should have nothing to do with our country, but affects our citizen rights here because they own so many of our politicians. And destabilizing our security means for them in the future, they possess the ability to buy more of our politicians, invest more in our infrastructure that they can own because we are not armed and can defend them.
Right. But also I'm comparing, like we're talking about the Chinese government.
Sure. Yeah.
But their people undoubtedly get treated like dog shit.
Worse.
Right.
Yeah, in many
So
ways, yeah. They have a horrendous caste system.
I think that would be our future.
It would
as far as how they're treated. I don't care about like how much money the government's making overseas, but like you get in your pod, you eat bugs. Here's your number.
Yeah.
Don't jaywalk. If you jaywalk, your social credit score is getting tanked.
Yeah. It would actually be worse for us if you consider the economic impact. Because China's on the rise and we're on the descent. To get us to, by the time we reach a level of, and we're close, we just do a better job of hiding it, honestly, and we give up our freedoms more willingly. But
tread on me harder, daddy.
when we get to the point where we are a open dictatorship in this country, we will be in much worse shape than the average Chinese citizen, because the average Chinese citizen came from abject poverty over the past 70 years, a little give or take, with massive amounts of economic growth based in.
So they're objectively living better.
They're increasing their standard of living while increasing the amount of fascism and dictatorship that's applied on them. When we reach that point, we will be decreasing our standard of living while increasing the amount of fascism and dictatorship that's applied on. So we will factually be in a worse condition than the average Chinese citizen.
Do you see it happening in our lifetime? The roundup.
It's a smooth operation is what it is. The government doesn't take, it simply convinces you to give to it what it wants. And then once you've given enough of your horns, you have no way to defend you or your herd anymore. And that just comes in and slaughters you. And yes, I see that everywhere. I see that with lands rights, Title VII. I see that with eminent domain laws. I see it with, restricting school access or education platforms or belief structures or how they're going to tax you here or what they're going to take from you or what you're allowed to do. I see it with red flag laws, Second Amendment specific. And more importantly than red flag laws are gray flag laws, which is...
What's a gray flag law?
So gray flag laws is a term being coined where a second or third party issue with another citizen can be made applicable. So let's say you have your son, little Johnny. He has gone to school and he has behaved in a manner that a teacher has found inappropriate. And then now big state steps in and says, you will put your son in our evaluation system as they do, irregardless of what your opinion is. And our system will determine how we're going to label little Johnny. He let's say he comes out autistic or ADHD or something, and we diagnose him with some form of neurodivergency that we think is a harm to him or you or society that needs to undergo treatment protocols. And as a result of him being your ward, I mean, he is now a co-ward of the state because the state is ordering little Johnny to go into these treatment pathways, but he's your son. Now you have become restricted in your weapons and firearm access. This is a gray flag law, whereas a red flag law is, I heard you say that the McDonald's cashier that you don't like them shoes, I'll smack you, fool. You made a violent threat, and now someone's going to come take all your guns. This is a proximal application of something that exists around you in your environment that they want to restrict, and by proxy they restrict you because of your access to it. So your son, your wife, or whatever, these are gray flag laws, and they just build and build and build and build on this until, like so many other reasons, they can just take them, and you have you already have no due recourse. You can't.
That's the crux of the problem,
right?
But I think the real big problem is people don't, not everybody, but the other side, I guess, doesn't care because they're like, I saw something, so I'm saying something. And that just brings me to the point that if you've done nothing violent, even if you have things in your home that you're not supposed to have, they should never kick your door in.
Yeah.
And raid your house with force and kill you because you might do something.
Yeah. There
better be little kids in there at gunpoint for them to kick your door in at 2:00 in the morning.
Completely agree. Yeah. At some point in time, you're going to come out. You're not going to stay in there forever. There's other ways to handle that type of stuff.
Why didn't they get David Koresh when he was jogging?
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Wait, who's David Koresh?
I don't know where we're allowed to go.
I'm just kidding. I know who he is.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and then you have so many well-intentioned people that become mechanisms or cogs in this system, and then it beats them down. Officers, who, so many of them start never wanting to infringe people's liberties. So many of them really start wanting to do the right thing and help. And
I think that's the majority of them.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't support defunding the police.
Yep.
But I support legislation to not give them as much power over people's personal property.
Yeah.
And certain rights. I mean, it kind of.
Well, I don't believe in federal police right off the bat. Right. I don't think we should have a Schutzstaffel in the United States of America. I don't believe in federally enforced. I only, and this is where I almost get in trouble with my libertarian ideals here. I only believe in state police in very, very, very specific situations, like enforcing interstate commerce issues or immigration issues or massive large scale incursions or something like that. Outside of that, I don't think you should be out on the highway running speed doing nonsense like this. I believe in the local police force, which is enforced and held accountably by locally elected officials at the small level, and they should, at their capacity, be effectively set up, established, trained, and equipped to handle the capacity of what is in their area. Every law enforcement entity should not be a SWAT team rolling around in every small town.
Right.
So
it doesn't seem like too much to ask if they got a MAT V and select fire M4s that we shouldn't have the same thing.
We should have much more capable.
Right. But I'm saying that's just a start.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you feel about ending qualified immunity?
So I think that I don't think ending qualified immunity is the right answer. I think aggressively modifying qualified immunity is the right answer. And I'll give you for example what I'm talking about. If you kick in somebody's door and you shoot my dog, and again, I'm making what I understand is a hyperbolically inappropriate statement here, and I'm making a joke as a guy who's best friends with 100 cops. If you kick in someone's door and you shoot their dog and you shoot their wife and whatever, you should not be protected under qualified immunity. If you're an armed thug,
even if you're carrying out
nope, absolutely not
stamped and approved search warrant for.
Nope. The vast majority of these warrants are issued in incorrectly anyway, and everybody knows that. I don't support that. But I'll give an example of this is one of my, my grayish red areas. If you catch somebody molesting a child, pop, qualified immunity. 100% support that. And I know that actually goes against my libertarian ideals. And that's a decision that I'm making completely emotionally and based on my moral system and not my.
I don't think it really does, considering you're stopping somebody from harming somebody else,
which is how I see it. But from a legal standpoint, that person should have.
So maybe not change qualified immunity to where, because let's be honest, if there's a police involved shooting and somebody has a gun, it's a police involved shooting and not necessarily a neighbor versus neighbor shooting. So there should be some sort of protection.
Just the moral side of me feels like there's 3 or 4 things that exist where a cop should be able to just.
But all this stuff is so nuanced though, and there's so many situations. So
exactly.
I don't want to make like bold statements like defund the police is a bold statement. Like you don't actually mean that.
Yes.
Because the thing is, if there was a big red button that said end all government and
the world would devolve into
and everything like that, you would be tempted to push it, but a new, probably worse one would start.
Yeah. I'm never a fan of destroying everything. That's one of the things that aggravates me about there's so much nihilism and anarchism in the Libertarian Party. That's why I tell people I'm an old school libertarian because there's no other idealistic party I can identify with.
There's being a philosophic anarchist to where it's like, we don't see that the government knows what you want better than you do.
Yeah. I see the government like a roof. Okay. It needs maintenance. It needs fixed. Okay. You go up on a roof and you have 37 bad shingles. You replace, you don't try to fix it.
I want to totally obliterate the deep state.
You don't remove the roof from the house. The house needs a roof, but the roof needs to be structured and built to serve its purpose correctly.
Right.
And, you can add a bunch of nonsense to the roof that makes it not work right. Get rid of all that. Make the roof do what it's supposed to do. Replace the shingles you're supposed to replace and make it do what it's supposed to do. The government is a massive, bloated, oligarchic mechanism of just ridiculous nonsense. I don't support destroying the government. I support aggressively reforming the government back to its original intention, function, and purpose.
You ever notice how whenever there's a government shutdown, your life doesn't change at all?
Well, that's because of how many non-essential workers work for the government.
So to your point,
all that. At the end of the day, people make every argument to me under the sun about government waste and why this needs to happen and that needs to happen. And my answer to that is always this: these kids got to buy lunch at school and nobody's paying for that.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying for that. All right. Listen, I drop these child molesters and a wood chipper on pay-per-view every Tuesday night and use that money to fund school lunches. Fund school lunches and fund teachers going to firearms training and defending schools.
Right.
Yep. And I know for a fact that if you had sign-up sheets in every community, I mean, there's some wackadoo places like in California and Washington State, I'm sure, but in most communities, you would have veterans in line to protect those kids. You'd have cops in line.
Yeah, and that's what I don't understand. We have a federal budget to protect statues and places that don't even have people in them.
Yeah, where buffaloes poop.
Yep. And we can't. I like to think our most precious thing is our children.
Well, that's how you know what the government funds what it prioritizes.
Exactly.
It protects what it prioritizes.
Buffalo poop and statues.
Yeah. Where them turtles
How much money did we send to Pakistan for gender studies?
We've spent more money on Ukraine this year than we have feeding children in the past 20 years in this country.
All right.
No shit.
Yeah. Because that's what the government supports.
Right. So back to my question, Tim, about Republicans defending our rights and saying it pertains to deer hunting. These deers aren't wearing Kevlar vests.
In the words of Joe Biden, buy a shotgun, right?
Yeah.
Pump 2 shots in the
No,
air.
but really, your whole life, you've probably, I'm assuming, been on Team Red, right? I mean,
I'm kind of I don't vote down the party lines per se.
have you ever voted for a Democrat?
I'd really have to go back and look at it. I don't know.
Right.
Just because in my past I've been a union leader
Mm-hmm.
and I work for a union and I also like my guns, so
I don't think the Democrat Party has been for the middle class since you've been alive.
right.
But
Right.
I think I was stuck in the same camp for a long time. Like the Second Amendment, when it comes to voting time, that's like my red line. Like, well, that's what matters most to me for a free and prosperous society. So anybody who
Right.
supports the Second Amendment, but we haven't gotten any of our rights back. Every Republican that we voted into office, and I understand that getting them taken away is worse than,
Right.
but I'm just really tired of blindly supporting people that are like, I promise I won't do anything with the Second Amendment. That's not good enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the only time in my voting history, I guess, back in the day when Governor Kasich wanted to or rolled out SB 5
Mm-hmm.
and basically abolish collective bargaining within Ohio, because I worked for a union at that time and I still do.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another right that he wanted to get rid of. I was totally against that. So in essence, I voted
Right.
against the Republicans for that.
Right.
But I guess you just have to take the issue by issue for me anyway. I know some people that I work with that just vote straight down Democrat lines
Mm-hmm.
because they're a union member,
Right.
and in my eyes, you can't do that. You
If-
have to,
If a super Democrat was running for president and they left the kids alone and they said abolish the ATF, I'd vote for a Democrat.
sure.
But people get stuck in this tribalism.
Yeah, exactly.
But then they'll blindly say, like, I support my Second Amendment rights or Republican. Like, are you sure about that?
Right.
Are you sure about that?
Another issue is how the primary systems work.
Absolutely.
You got so many people that say I'm going to run on the Republican ticket or Democrat ticket or whatever, but then to make it through the primaries and get the party's nomination, you have to bend every knee that you have 100 times, and you may start as something and you end with the nomination as an entirely different animal that's sold out your morals.
You get all
and
this
integrity.
attention because you're this extreme outsider.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, you guys have seen that happen a million times. You've been voting half your life and happens to all of them.
Right.
That's why I stay outside them party lines anymore. I'd rather vote for an ignorant than vote for another. Like, you'll never convince me anymore. The Republicans are just controlled opposition, and the Democrats are just a more extreme arm of the exact same political belief structure that just moves faster. So,
And it just tears me up to see people that think that the government has their best interests at heart and they'll protect them. Like they will. There's people that will just wait for 911 to come. That's what they say.
yeah.
Right. The police are there to investigate crimes.
Right. And if they just so happen to stop a crime in progress, that's great.
Right.
Well, you create a problem. This is what government does. Government creates a problem so it can create a solution that it can tax you for
COVID.
and then implement you into a system of control for a problem that it created for a solution it's going to make you pay for. That's what modern government
textbook.
is. That's textbook is what it is. And that's what you all day, every day. I mean,
And speaking of
that's why them
COVID,
kids are hungry.
speaking of COVID,
Hard
I think
pivot.
that really opened people's eyes to needing why they need a gun. they're like, holy shit, nobody's coming.
COVID.
Hey, can I have a gun? Hey, no. And a lot of freaking people were like, I thought you could just buy them on the internet.
Yeah.
There's so many ignorant people that are like,
yeah,
they're making me wait 30 days.
Where's the gun section at Kroger's?
Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
That's what I'm saying.
Lunch meat, another Glock.
Hey, can I borrow a gun? No. Why do I have to wait so long? And we need universal background checks. There's already background checks.
Oh.
And
right.
And people are like, well, you can just get them at gun shows.
Yeah.
It's true if somebody's carrying a gun around and wants to sell it to you, they can. Most of the time at all these booths now. It's just another logical. But you should be able to sell somebody a gun and nobody needs to know about it because it's none of their damn business.
Yeah.
Forever, you've been able to make your own gun. That is still legal to make your own. Well, probably depending on what state you're in now.
Yeah.
But you should be able to make your own gun and sell and trade it to your friend for a pack of cigarettes.
Listen, I know in this day and age, this is a
hot take.
This is a hot take. Okay. But I'm going to say it and I'll defend it. I should be able to park a van outside of an elementary school and sell AK-47s out the back of that van to the dads who just got done dropping their kids off in that elementary school. I should be able to do that. If I'm a dirtbag who is going to do something bad, I should have already been clapped by an armed citizenry. That problem should have solved itself before I ever got to the point where I had that option. But I should be able to do that. I should. You get people asking you about these gun show loopholes that don't exist and this, that, and the other thing. And I should be able to go to McDonald's, get a Big Mac, and then pull over in the Burger King parking lot and be like, oh, hey, Jerry, I need another 100, I need 100 7.62 by 39s. Oh, thanks, bro. Thank you. I'll be back next week.
Mm-hmm.
Also muskets, because Second Amendment.
Yeah. I just like to picture who drafted this, like James Madison sitting here and being like, why are you talking about this?
Yeah. Why is this?
And I want to be like, well, you obviously didn't make it clear enough.
Yeah.
People have rights to do whatever they want.
If you didn't know how to formulate a paragraph a little better, we'd be in a better situation. That's why they teach that in school now.
There are so many different things in the Bill of Rights. Mm-hmm. Like what's all in the First Amendment? Freedom of assembly, press, all of that. It's like huge.
People don't even know.
The Second Amendment is small.
People don't know what gender they are, apparently now. They can't even look down and see that they have a dick.
I feel my feet getting hot.
I mean, you expect them to read the Second Amendment?
Well, I've listened.
I mean, apparently. I don't know.
I've listened to the other side.
The single biggest mistake that this country ever allowed to happen was the interpretation or intent of the law to be modified. And that's not just with the Second Amendment. That's with everything.
Right.
If you made a law that said it's non-moral it's not moral to murder people, you should not be able to continuously reevaluate that every couple of years and go, maybe it's a little moral.
Right.
Maybe you can murder your grandma. Maybe you can murder your baby. Maybe you can murder your neighbor because he keeps mowing too far in your yard.
Right.
You shouldn't be able to do that. And that right there, that unethical legal process is what has facilitated whittling away the intent of the Second Amendment.
And I felt like it was so simple. You can have a gun and you can't kill people.
Yeah.
You can't murder people.
Yeah.
That seems very simple to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Defend your life if you have to. Outside of that, don't be a general butthole.
Right. And like you said, it's over time constantly changing, and it shouldn't. You have some Supreme Court justices like Darth Vader Ginsburg who says it's a living document and it should always be changed. Mm-hmm. And then
unless you ask to change something she believes in, like abortion rights or no fault divorce or,
Thanks a lot, Reagan. That was another Reagan thing. I grew up thinking Reagan was the best president ever. And the more I learn about him, I'm like, this dude really screwed us. Mm-hmm. And he took away machine guns.
Yeah.
So, and advocated for no fault divorce.
If you want to open that can, I'm just saying. So
like the 2008, I forget how many years went by before the Supreme Court even heard a gun case, but it was a long time until 2008, the Heller case. And how do you say his name? Scalia. They pretty much decided like everybody has a right to have a gun in their own home and defend themselves. And they said, It's not just about militias, but they also put in there that gun rights can be regulated as like states see fit. So you can have a gun in your home, but it might just be,
yeah,
a piece of crap.
You have any? Have you heard anything about the pistol braces now that everybody's a felon?
Yeah, no.
So
I haven't heard anything yet.
I pulled up an article.
I believe it's still in the courts.
Well, so as of June 1st, if you still have it, you're a felon.
Right.
They don't have the, here's the thing. I keep hearing people make this argument. They don't have the capacity to enforce that, and they don't. It's accurate. And that was never the intent.
No.
The intent was to have a reason that they can invent, like so many other reasons, to tack on extra weight to whatever they're going to do to you when they want to.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
Just an add-on.
Yeah.
That's what the director of the ATF said when they asked him in the hearing or whatever, how do you plan on enforcing this? And he basically said it will be a secondary crime.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if they're looking for your big baggie of weed or whatever.
Yeah. When Tim decides that he wants to tell the local state highway patrolman that he doesn't think he was doing 50 and a 40, and that guy wants to just find
smells like weed in here.
Yep, smells like weed in here. I'm gonna get the dog, you know. And then all of a sudden, oh, what's that? You got a pistol brace on your thing? That's 9 million felonies. I'm taking your wife.
Well, yeah. So they estimate there's between 10 and 40 million pistol braces floating around.
Yeah.
And as of 2 weeks ago, 250,000 are registered. I mean, so there's.
Well, I think during the bump stock thing, like 4 or 8 people turned in their bump stock.
So what happened with that? Are they cool now?
I think they ruled it unconstitutional because it was. It completely put out of business that people's telling them no one's going to touch that
definitely
anymore. You know, so
which that was the real point. That's how you slowed down no one will take it. No one will buy it. You destroyed the secondary market. Mm-hmm. Okay. You destroyed the trade market. You destroyed the production market.
And Trump said, the NRA told me that wasn't a big deal anyway. Like bump stocks weren't a big deal. It's like, that's not the point.
Yeah. It's not the point. I mean, cause that's not even what the guy in.
That's what they say he used.
There's no way.
Anybody who's ever shot a bump stock knows that was a 240 Bravo.
The guy in Las Vegas.
Band, Rod. One more rubber band. What do we think of the old second coming to Trumpster and his 2A applications or lack thereof, in my opinion?
You know, it's funny I think take the guns now and find out if they're criminal later. That was not a good look.
I want to be on the record as saying if Trump gets elected again, I think it'll be 10 times worse for gun rights than he was the first time.
Maybe.
I think he's bought and paid for.
But I hear Trump Jr. talk like for his dad or about his dad, and he's like, he just golfs. He doesn't really shoot, and he flubbed that up, and too many people, not the right people, were in his ear, but like, you know, so I hear these things. I'm like, no, okay, but
it would have cost him nothing to support his base, other than the approval of non-voted government agencies.
He was going after the independents.
Yep. He did that to have the support of non-elected government-appointed entities.
Yeah, I would much rather have somebody in there that's, you know, going to give us rights back instead of being like, I promise you, they're not going to mess with it. Yeah. China kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I listened to his whole speech the other day, and I've been pretty off put. Like, I don't really want to deal with this again. The last 10 seconds of his speech, he said, I'm going to totally obliterate the deep state. And I was like, I don't believe you, but my blood pressure just went up here's a little bit.
Here's the thing, though. Anybody outside of a poorly educated cursory voter knows that there is no mechanism in place for him to actually do that. Now he can schedule F everybody who's appointed at the executive level, at the executive branch level. Sure. And then it's going to immediately cause a massive power vacuum and chasm black hole of systems collapsing in upon itself immediately. So that's not, I'll tell you what it's going to be. If he's going to do anything, it'll be the first 6 to 8 months of his presidency. And I don't think he'll do anything of him going, well, I was going to schedule at the head of the Department of Education. Then I found out that the kids don't get to have gym class if that happens. Right. It's just going to be it's going to be that. And then nothing will happen. So what you're going to hear for 8, 9, 10 months is, President Trump said, he's taking on the Secretary of Transportation. He's taking on the Secretary of Education. He didn't, and nothing happened. And nothing happened. And that's what's going to happen.
There's just something about me that would rather have that, like the whole energy of these people don't like you, rather than another neocon that gets all of his money from donors, and it's like, we just get another George Bush.
I mean, I get it. If you gotta pick between two gross sandwiches, you're gonna pick one with cheese. I'm trying not to say the
giant douche and a turd sandwich.
I didn't want to say it, but yeah, the reference, it's copyrighted, but
I would take Ron Paul in a Trump wig.
I would
before
or any other super smart, highly educated brown guy who really seems to be pushing hard. I wouldn't get a job. I didn't know if I was cool to drop his name, but
he said super brown guy.
Well, hey, I mean, there's a lot of qualified super brown guys.
Yeah.
And when you come out and you just say, I'm going to schedule F all these systems, but you don't say how you're going to implement that or how you're going to put safety nets in place. I think
the smartest thing to do, and he's kind of like that too, because he said 90% of the Federal Reserve needs to be like fired day one. So he's kind of on that fire and brimstone.
Well, see, that won't do anything though, because
path to everybody I fired was a Rothschild.
Yeah.
It's just like any other business though. When you take it over, don't be afraid to fire people that are messing up and replace them with people you think are good.
Yeah.
That was his biggest, everybody says that was his biggest downfall, is he hired the wrong people. And now the good people.
Trump's biggest downfall was that he wanted to be liked by cabinet members.
Now the good people probably don't want to work for him. Like the people that should work for him are too scared to get involved in that ego battle.
Yeah. He will be mark my words, he'll be a lame duck president with no support system around him.
Well, he just is a lame duck president.
Right.
Which a lot of people kind of like, because they're like, well, he's got nothing to lose, so let's just tear something apart.
He also has nothing to do. That's the other problem. He'll have no look. Being head of the executive doesn't mean anything unless you have mechanisms in place in order to facilitate bringing about that structural change that needs to take place. And there are other candidates. I don't want to drop names. I don't know who's going to wear what, but there are other candidates who have better structured systems in place to resolve some of those. But it's also pie in the sky. If you gave Donald Trump 25 more years in office, he's not going to accomplish 1/10 of what he says he's going to get done.
Right. But neither is anybody running for office.
Agreed. Agreed. But I'll prefer the guy or gal who actually gives a rational explanation about what can or cannot be done versus a massive hyperbolic, just to gin up the trailer park mess, which is what Trump's done.
Right.
He's coming out as I'm the, it's like the opening of a Ted Nugent concert. He's coming out like a vendetta, and everyone's like, yeah, that's our guy. And you're going to vote him in office. And
that's Operation Warp Speed. That's our guy.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, and what did he do for you? He took from you.
Right.
That's great.
He didn't get us in any new wars. I'll give him that.
He didn't. He did not get us any.
He bombed a bunch of people in Yemen, including kids, but he didn't get us in any new wars, like he said. So
the libertarian side of me could make some arguments that he could have done a better job structuring withdrawals, so the incoming goofball administration didn't muck it up so bad. But the incoming administration also could have made the decision to slow down withdrawal procedures, and that's neither here nor there. That's not a two-way argument, but I'm just saying, if right now you told me to pick a presidential candidate based on 2A alone, Donald Trump is nowhere near, not even in the universe of. I would vote for Hillary Clinton. I would vote for Hillary Clinton on a 2A precedent over Donald Trump.
Oh, if she said everybody should have their rights back?
If it was only over the Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. That's my red line.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate that we have to vote for people conserving the bad laws that we already have.
Yeah.
Well.
Also, you can look this up on the internet. I don't want to drop a search engine, but technically, if my numbers is correct here, I believe Xi Jinping had a less aggressive gun constriction protocol in place. Xi Jinping, during the time that President Trump was in office, did less to restrict gun laws than Donald Trump did.
Yeah, but
during his 4-year tenure,
there's nothing to do with them anymore. They just don't have them.
There's a class of people that have access to them, but
yeah,
not most of the class.
The CCP, or wait, what is their party? The people.
Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. CCP.
You down with CCP?
RFK Jr. was talking about, was it Sweden? Sweden, the one with all the guns? The SWIT?
Yeah.
Yeah. They have as many guns per populace as we do.
Yeah.
But
they got some cool stuff going on.
But there's not really that many shootings. Yeah. But that's kind of interesting when you think about it, because another thing that Reagan did was get rid of the mental institutions. I believe that was Reagan. I might look that up, but
I'm not sure about that one.
But
I do know
it's a huge problem.
I do know over in that country, they're also they're big on pushing education. Their educational system is much better than ours is, but also
they're pretty fairly socialist.
They are, but they do a better job educating their children in school, but they also do a better job educating their
it was Reagan.
Children about any rights that they have or safe usage of firearms.
Exactly. They have an education culture where they teach everybody how to use this stuff.
Yeah, responsibly.
They take care of their mentally disabled and mentally ill people.
Yeah, their thought process behind that is the same as, a pull behind bush hog on your. This is a dangerous piece of equipment. You need to be trained and taught how to use it and respect it. And they approach it with the same thought process and concept as that, which is how it should be everywhere.
Right.
That's how it should be
everywhere.
And
no, I don't think anybody thought that out of all of Europe that a Scandinavian country would have not locked down for COVID.
For sure. I was surprised by that.
And at first they were like, you're killing everybody. So they got wiped out, and then they ended up on the same exact path as everybody else without locking a single thing down.
Right.
Maybe I am from Sweden.
Are you Swedish?
They also pay like 60%.
They got trolls and stuff
in taxes.
Yeah.
60% of their income is taxes, but they're interesting.
It's big.
We're getting there
for sure.
Yeah, we're pretty close.
The tipping point will be when the government finally comes out with a plan to feed those school kids, and then it goes to something else other than feed those school kids.
Right.
That'll be your 61% right there.
So people don't want guns because they care about kids, because that's always the heartstring to pull.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of giving our kids nutrition in school, we just send guns to Ukraine.
Or good education or access to affordable health care, or, decent family structures, or a nuclear family, or any form of functioning support system to develop them through a whole host of things, or normalized, globally agreed mental health care, or anything else.
Now, why would you go do something like that?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. It's because it's not their priority.
Right. Well, people aren't going to be as obedient if you tell them the truth.
Right.
I guess that goes back to, if you got a Slick Fire M4, I should have one. Oops, I accidentally shot all these people. Me.
Why is the government seeking to punish American citizens for much lesser versions of what they don't punish themselves for all day, every day?
That's a much better way to put it.
We don't want you killing a person. It's our job to kill 1,000 people a day for no reason with no repercussions.
Right.
You need laws. We don't.
And some days I wake up and I don't like any of the laws whatsoever, but I do believe in law and order.
Yeah.
But we could do with probably
some gun law and order.
The citizenry should have just as much access to enforcing order in society as government officials do.
Exactly.
In my opinion. I know a lot of people would not agree with that. Look, I'm not saying it should be Dustin's job to go enforce, Jared's unpaid parking tickets. But I feel that if a community rationally and respectfully can validly prove that a member of that community is somehow doing great harm or killed or raped or did something super messed up, and there's proof, the burden of proof, you should go through a legal process, you should have due process, and that community should be able to exact.
I feel like that process should take 10 minutes and there should be a guillotine involved.
It should take as long.
I like that.
It should take as long as required to adequately prove beyond a shadow of a doubt guilt. And if that's a year, it's a year. If it's 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes. If 100 people witnessed it, then 100 people witnessed it. But you should have a fair trial. That's one of the cornerstones that they're trying to take away with everything else. But the citizenry should have the right to enact that punishment sometimes,
Well, I guess people could argue that already happens and you get judged by, a jury of your peers.
It's not, though. We're so detached from the ramifications of actions that people don't even look. It's to be said. Look, I'm not saying bring back murder people at the stake or hanging or anything like that, but the community used to be invested in upholding the moral aptitudes of the community. That was a cornerstone of civilization. When we became so detached from that process and we handed 100% of that authority over to the government, we became detached from all of that and denaturalized from all of it.
And you're talking about a common moral framework.
Yes.
Amongst communities.
Yeah.
But then we keep skirting back to the nuclear family, which back in the day used to just be called a family.
Well, see, you had said 3 things the government will stay away from, and you had listed the gun rights and the family.
I didn't even say gun rights, but
family rights in general.
Right.
From marriage rights to your children, to how you raise your kids, what they believe, your religion, their education, their belief structures, their ideologies, all that. The government should have no authority over that at all. And any politician who tries to enforce authority on that should swing from the closest tree immediately.
Right. And these mass shooters, sometimes I think about back when people used to say, like my dad's generation, there was no like school shootings and stuff like that.
When I was in school, that was not that long ago.
Right.
When I was in school, people were driving trucks to school with rifles, knives in their pocket, rifles in their back windshield, parked in the parking lot all day long. And it was as second nature as having shoes on.
Yeah. Do you think people cared more that they would dishonor their family, their last name? Like if somebody did something heinous, their family would hang their head in shame and they have disgraced their whole family, and that's not what they do. And now do you think it's, well, he's an individual, I don't know what happened. They don't really care about the legacy or any of that. Do you think there's a correlation there between responsibility?
I think a more acute way to say that was, when I was growing up, you were part of your community and your family was too.
Yeah.
Now everything is reduced down to the singular. I was never special in school. Neither were you, and neither was anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You had the 3 or 4 cool kids in any given school. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the average population of any junior high or high school was just random schmoes trying to get through the day, go home, play your baseball, play your Nintendo, ride your bike with your friend. You were the community. And yes, as an adolescent, you don't understand your responsibilities at all. You're just a goofy kid, but everything wasn't about you.
Right.
This stuff started happening when everything became about
self.
I'm important. I'm special. I get special attention. I get what my whole MO at school was to keep my head down.
Yeah.
Get in and out without getting whacked or in trouble or you
didn't want to get your ass beat, and you knew there was consequences to your actions.
Yeah. And then you go home, you do your homework, and then you're because it's not about self. It's not about self at the dinner table. It's not about self at baseball. Right. It's not about self in the geometry class. You're here to do. And then when we turned everything into all this,
when we turned it into the only thing that matters is my feelings and how I'm feeling today.
So when we made everybody their own idol.
Yeah.
And you worship yourself as your own idol. That's when we caved all of this in, and these kids, You know, that coupled with the fact that every single kid is on a Ziploc bag of pharmaceuticals all day, every day now, right. You're not going to convince me that doesn't have anything to do with it. I mean, come on.
It has to.
Guns didn't magically get more dangerous. Bullets didn't start magically pulling triggers. We messed up our kids. We messed up our kids, and we mess them up when we let the government have control of them.
Yeah. Another big thing is, I think, is the freaking media. Yeah. And technology. We have so much information at our fingertips now. It's stupid. You know, I mean, it's nice in some aspects, but the media, whether you watch Fox News or CNN or whoever, everybody's going to put spin on everything.
Yeah. And I think these other kids see the glorification in some aspects of these shooters, and they want that. You know, that's all they have.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought you'd see the day you shoot up a school for likes, you know, but it seems, and that's why I respect some of these organizations that won't say the shooter's last name. Like, we're not going to give you, or the first name.
Right.
But
it's so crazy to see, even at my age now, I still don't understand. I mean, I get it because I understand addictive tendencies and stuff and whatever, but you know, here's me at 19 years old, and I couldn't care less if Jared liked my post I put on MySpace about AutoZone's 25% off coupon for renting or whatever. Yeah. You know, but it's literally the air these kids breathe now. Yeah. And it's the mothers and fathers who are completely responsible for this. They handed their child a dopamine addiction at the age of 2 because it shut them up. Mm-hmm. So they could watch their show and go do their thing or leave them at grandma or whatever. And they said, here's your little dopamine addiction. And then that's what precipitated. Mm-hmm. And that little dopamine addiction also happens to be a portal to the single largest source of government indoctrination on earth.
Well, yeah.
So they just get fed that.
They're not going to give you access to the internet and not shoot propaganda in your face.
Exactly.
It would be a waste.
Yeah. That's why you need to surf on the dark web.
It's a sad state of things because the government, even with parents who are very active in raising their children, the government is more active in raising their children if they have access to technology.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You know, they have 1,000 dads and moms for every mom and dad that they have at home. And that's if they're lucky enough to have a mom and dad at home at all. So that's
it's unfortunate.
Raising little stewardess tax slaves.
Print guns, not money.
Yeah.
Print guns.
I just bought that shirt.
I like that.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I was looking at shirts to wear to ink. I got a Ron Paul that says taxation is theft and just an M16 that says print guns, not money.
It's all fun and games until for no reason they invent a shortage on 3D printing filler and regulate it.
I really need to get one of those.
Then we're going to have to use real guns again.
You got to put a tax stamp on 3D printer novels.
I think you can
don't give them any ideas.
Print your own tax stamp now.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Fancy.
It's going to be funny when you see the ATF regulating 3D printers and the gymnastics they'll do to justify why that agency has the authority to do
No,
that.
they want to. They actually do want to. It's not just a joke.
Yeah.
What?
Why? I mean, why are they allowing the ATF to create laws anyway? I mean,
that's a great question.
I mean, why is everybody just cool with that?
I have a phenomenal.
Not that everybody's cool with it, but why is it happening?
Regulatory agencies should not be creating their own laws.
I'll tell you why. The question asked was, why are they allowing? And the reason they are allowing is because there's no.
And they is the
big government.
Yeah.
Is because there's no challenging process. Okay. They like to use as many non-elected, non-challengeable processes or fiat processes to instill mechanisms of control because you have no way to challenge that. It's everybody knows when the small town puts the speed camera in the radar speed camera. You guys know from a town where they did that. That happened in every small town at least once.
Oh, Lucas did it.
Yeah, and you can't challenge it. You didn't have your day in court. You got clipped with a speeding ticket. You didn't pay it. It sent it to your credit report, and that's the way it was. You end up having to pay it, and it made everybody mad. And then it stayed there for years and years and years, and nobody had any due recourse. Right. You couldn't challenge it. You couldn't go to court. You couldn't say there's no.
That's your Fourth Amendment right?
Yeah. So you have no system in place to challenge the ATF. Yeah, you can go get a fleet of attorneys who can open a class action lawsuit and challenge the DOJ and spend your entire life savings and never get anywhere. But really, you don't have any due recourse.
And you shouldn't have to bury yourself in lawyer fees just because.
And that's the point I want to get across too, is people are like, well, they can't do this, the Second Amendment. And it's like, yeah.
So support it.
They don't care about you saying, look at the hypocrisy. If you haven't figured it out by now, they don't care.
They don't care.
They know and they don't care. Right. So the more you sit there and go, but the Second Amendment says, like, we could talk about that till we're blue in the face, but it's not going to do anything.
Right. They're gonna do what they want until you bury yourself in legal fees and take it to court. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're still never going to win. You're just going to disappear because somehow you had a dime of weed in the trunk of your car and now you're in Abu Ghraib.
Still got the shovel.
It's been a slippery slope for some time. I mean, we're past slippery slope and we're full blown cool run-ins down the down the slope at this point. I mean, it's a 4-man bobsled team of doom. So
by the beach.
Yeah, I don't see reform coming. I think we'll go through some seasons of very minor government overreach restrictions being put in place that will just immediately get repealed every single time the next D or R or D or R gets in there. Mm-hmm. And every single bit of that will repeal and repeal and repeal and repeal more. And then in 10 years, we'll look back at now and be like, I can't believe how free we were. And right now we're not free. But in 10 years, we'll look back and be like, remember how free we were and we could
right
sit at that table and do a podcast.
And that's what I said earlier about they take 100, they take 100 rights from you and give back 99.
Yeah.
It's like you get this illusion that you're super free.
Yeah.
And some people might think we're entitled. Like, look at you sitting there doing a podcast. You got a gun in your truck. Like, I want that for everybody.
Think back 15 years ago, how comfortable we were with saying and doing things. And now every single one of us has become programmed to parse our words or watch what we say or not say this or dance around this or not interact with that because of how free we are.
Right. Oh, I'm feeling it right now.
Yeah.
Super free.
Yeah. Careful. You don't want to end up like Alex Jones.
Yeah. He's doing okay now.
My frog man.
They're turning the freaking frogs gang.
I love you, sweet prince.
I'm just saying he was proven right. That's all I'm saying. But
yeah, unlike almost every single thing that he said.
Yeah.
I've yet to see any realistic proof about the interdimensional sex vampires. But listen to me, I'm not taking the tinfoil off yet.
Look, if he's 90% right, whatever that 10% is that hasn't been proven right yet, he's right.
All I'm saying is every day that I go to Save-On Aldi's, Alex Jones is proven right about something else. I see it in the parking lot or in the vegetable section.
What's that?
So just everything he says, everything. You go into an Aldi's and tell me Alex Jones is wrong. He's right.
Alex Jones is right.
Yeah.
I think we already said it earlier, but just before we wrap up, you're perfectly okay with just anybody buying a tank.
Yes, as long as the tank is properly maintained. Okay. And
isn't it their right not to maintenance it?
Well, I guess my point is I don't want people who have the tank hurting their children in it.
Mm-hmm.
So
you don't want the brakes to go out and
the brakes go out. Yeah. So I want
rolling over some innocence.
So you would mandate that they have to maintain it so they don't hurt their kids.
No. I wouldn't mandate anything. What I would do is make sure that communities implemented programs to assist them in proper education. Mm-hmm. And I would fund that with excess taxpayer funds that I saved by not donating it in foreign aid is what I would do. So
if we're doing fairy tale land, how about no federal income tax, and then you, like you said, you can take that money and support whatever you want in your own community.
Completely agree. I'm not 100.
But the roads, how would we pay for the roads?
We're not paying for the roads right now.
We don't need roads.
There's like a meme that libertarians hate roads. So like. Because that always comes up. Yeah, but without taxes, how would our roads get done?
Yeah. Well, as a self-imposed libertarian, because there's nowhere else for me to rein in my autism. There's just like in the Democratic Party, you have hardcore leftists. In the Libertarian Party, you have a pretty large quotient of nihilists and anarchists that just can't put their stupidity anywhere else. So they say libertarianism has the biggest corral, so I'm going to poop in there. That's what they do. The vast majority of libertarians don't believe in complete destruction of the government because they understand that you require civilization for civility.
And I don't believe in complete destruction. I think a lot of people phrase it wrong. I think it's 100% pure voluntarism.
Yeah.
Say terrorism.
I was choking for a minute.
Where, we both agree to interact with each other, and pure 100% unthrottled capitalism where you need something and I need something and we make it work.
Yeah. It should never be more complicated than this.
They shouldn't have. Nobody has the right to step in and tell you how you should
100%.
voluntarily interact with each other. That's all it is.
100% free market on everything. Free market on drugs, free market on violence, free market on peace, free market on belief structures, education.
And let these communities police themselves.
Yes, let all of that. I mean, that's a big part of it. If you're my neighbor and I like you, here's my lawnmower.
Yeah.
If you're my neighbor and I don't like you and you come over and you want fisticuffs, click, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And the federal government should just ensure everybody's civil liberties, not tell them what they should be.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. If you call law enforcement and they come to your neighbor's house, they should say, I just want to make you aware that if you aim a gun at his face, he has the legal authority to remove your face from your head. Be aware of that. Have a nice day. See you later. That keeps people in line because they have the threat of ramifications of their actions. That's a balanced society. Knowing that if you do something amoral to the larger group, the group is going to impact you in a negative way.
Right. Well, just like you talked about having a tank, if everybody's got a tank, I'm a firm believer in fuck around and find out.
Sure.
If somebody goes rolling with their Panzer down the street and decides to start blowing stuff up, guess what? The neighborhood's coming. And they're gonna fuck you up.
And this is awesome because this think of this from an economic standpoint. It's fun and games to consider everybody having a tank, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But consider the community investment in that. I mean, this is a whole cottage economy that'll pop up around free market economy, maintenance, specialty oils, importing jobs. This is better access to education. I mean, this is a whole cottage community.
And when businesses fail, they fail for real. Not too big to fail.
Yeah, we don't prop up
the banks. No.
Yeah.
That's what pure because when people are like, I hate capitalism, is like, and I feel like a hypocrite because you hear people say, well, that's not real communism. Real communism works. That's not the same.
No, when my tank maintenance business fails, Joey's slightly smaller, run more efficient tank maintenance business pops up right after me and does a better job because that's what the free market dictates.
Yes. Yeah. That's real freedom.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
We're getting tanks.
Yes, and every Saturday you can take your kids to the tank museum.
You would let people buy hand grenades? Yes, I would. Yeah. You know why? Because there isn't a bunch of people building pipe bombs and throwing them in my window. Like, why are you so scared that you give people, they think that they know better than you. Yeah. They know how to keep you safe. Get in the pod, get your VR set on, eat the bugs. Yeah. You're not allowed to buy grenades.
Now, for the record, I would let everybody, even old Ethels, buy grenades. Yeah. Okay. Even murderers who paid their time or violent criminals who paid their time in jail, I've let them. But with grenades specifically, I would require maintenance certificates every year just to make sure that you're carrying around, because you don't know.
But now you're requiring things.
I'm not requiring it. If you want to transport it off your property is what I'm saying. You can have 100 grenades on your property, but if you want to take a grenade in your pocket at Aldi's, I need to know that your grenade is insured and it's been properly maintained.
Well, and I also like people say things like, it's amazing how unfazed I was by what you just said.
Well,
I'm just like, yeah.
It's because it resonates with your soul. There's nothing wrong with that.
Did David Koresh ever take hand grenades off the compound?
Well, I don't know that David Koresh actually had hand grenades. He did have a lot.
Yeah,
of
there was a guy that got charged for having hand grenades, but they had a FFL and all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
that's a whole thing.
Yeah, let's not, dude. I just want to do talk about on the 1992. I just want to talk about
what would Marv Heemeyer do? Get a dozer.
Yeah, tread on them.
He had his own tank.
See, the thing is with free market capitalism is people. Well, if you legalize drugs and legalize all this stuff, then there's no regulation. Blah blah blah. It's just like anything else. if you're selling bad hand grenades in a real capitalist free market society, you're not going to be in business very long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like if you're selling bad drugs,
but see,
you're not going to be in business very long.
I agree with you, but I use that to draw the parallel of the extremist side of the Libertarian Party because it can.
Because you have to have an answer for it.
Exactly. It can get silly. So if you want to give unlimited freedom, you do have to have mechanisms in place to protect other people's safety because unlimited freedom can and will, because of human nature and the environment, will cause people to lose their life. So you have to have mechanisms in place.
That's the thing. The reason that I, for the longest time, shied away from the libertarianism mindset is because everybody seemed like utopian about it.
Yeah.
But when you really realize that humanity's messed up and people are going to die and hurt each other anyway, it's just going to happen. It's going to happen.
You cannot have civilization without civilized behavior, and the enforcement of civilized behavior requires some type of government. And some libertarian ideals can't wrap their head around that, but normal libertarians can. The Overton window, you know what the Overton window is? The Overton window is here. Not as far as it could be to the left, but so much farther than it was when I was born.
Right.
I want the Overton window to be shifted all the way back as far to freedom as it can, like clicking a typewriter.
Like keep going left to like liberalism.
All the way around.
Click a couple more.
Yep. I don't want to be on that square Venn diagram. I want to be on an entirely different diagram. But people still need to be held accountable for their actions.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I think that's the regulation part of it.
Yes. You can have a hand grenade. You can have a basket of hand grenades. But you are responsible for them and what they do.
But it's the same thing you said about the car. It's like, well, what, people are just going to throw hand grenades through people's window? It's like, you can go buy a freaking RV right now and put a bunch of things in there that go boom.
Yeah.
And run it through somebody's house.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all your intent of what you're going to do with it.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't tell people what's best for them.
There's more explosives in my local Walmart right now than David Koresh had in his entire compound, and they're not regulated in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Everything's a tool.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're going to do harm,
murder's been a crime for a really long time.
Yep.
Yeah. If you intend to do harm to somebody, you're going to use whatever means you have. It's not going to be, you don't have a gun. You're going to use a fucking shovel.
And I think about all these.
Yeah.
I think about all these.
Or a rock.
Yeah.
I think about all these little grandmas that can just get pushed over and taken advantage of. They should have a gun.
Yeah.
Everybody should have one.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll. If you could push a button and all the guns would be gone right now, because they're not going away. There's more guns than there are people in the U.S.
Yep.
And you did that, the criminals would be emboldened to do whatever they want.
Yep. I support these old grannies and defenseless women having infinitely more effective mechanisms than guns.
Yeah.
Like a flamethrower or something.
I don't care. You could have like reactive body armor on you if you want. I don't care if you want to walk around a suicide vest. Just make sure it's only a 5-foot range. That's it. It needs to be regulated, so it's only a 5-foot range.
Sensible suicide vest.
Sensible suicide vest. Yes. Minimize the effect of your responsibility.
I think a lot of people that aren't into the gun world, when you we take somebody new shooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we explain to them what like a pistol brace is, and we have to have a pistol brace on there because if this barrel's under 16 inches and it doesn't have a brace, or I'm sorry, if it has a stock on it, then it's a short barreled rifle. If we want a short barrel rifle, we have to pay a $200 tax stamp and then give money to the ATF, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, does it do the same thing?
Yeah.
We're like, yeah. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
It's
welcome to the club. Dude.
Welcome to the club.
It's very silly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, when I tell you that your 4-wheel drive truck is only allowed to have 18-inch tires on it now for no reason other than
it's just obscure.
Some nonsense I just made up, like fuel economy. And then everyone's like, why is it going to hurt you to put? So what? It looks
well, the
dumb,
fuel economy thing would make sense because the big sun monster.
Well, I get it. But, until somebody makes that argument, it's for fuel economy, it's for the environment. And now all of a sudden you got 18-inch tires on your big giant 4-wheel drive
because
truck.
like you said earlier, there's a problem and we're going to fix it.
Yeah. And
if you don't want us to fix it,
Yeah.
Here's prison.
And half the country and all the environments are going to yell at you and go, why don't you care about the environment? Why don't you care about the safety of our children? Why don't you care about their future? Put your 18-inch tires on your giant four-wheel drive truck. And then here you are. You pressured into it. Now your whole truck's doing the Carolina squat over here and you look like a ding dong, but hey, government control. And if you want composite rims, here's your tax stamp for no reason.
And it is like that.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It makes no sense.
Oh. Yeah.
And just what we prefaced the whole thing on, I just want to say the Second Amendment was made at the time when people were telling us what to do. We put big lead balls into their skull.
Way worse than that.
So
way worse than that.
We put all of our tea in the harbor.
If you're an original context kind of person, then just remember that we were doing that. You have any closing statements you'd like to add? He's gonna say America.
No. I think again, I think our listener base probably all
already knows this stuff,
has guns. But if you're on the fence, get a gun and get some training, man.
Mm-hmm. I've been considering getting into firearms myself recently. What would you guys advise for me to? I mean, I don't know nothing about guns. I don't know any guns. What would you advise as my first firearm?
Well,
Springfield XD 40 cal.
Yeah, 40 cal.
Can I fit it in these tiny hands?
Maybe a Ruger LCP.
An LCP? I'm going to look into that. I can't even hold a McChicken in my tiny hands.
No, actually, you look more like a 1911 guy with your little Hawaiian shirt on.
I want
because they don't make 46.
I want one of those orange hunting hats so bad. I want to fit in with the guys at the Walmart.
Oh no. Okay. That's just another thing that upsets me. I think me and Tim already talked about it, but when you're wearing
we're getting into some FUD lore.
When you're wearing your orange hat and you're just like,
as a public statement.
Yeah, as a public statement.
You mean they don't look good?
And you say, I love the Second Amendment, but nobody should have a full auto machine gun.
It's really just like another form of gang insignia.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like you're
in the FUD gang.
I won't do it. I won't get into it because it's.
You won't get into what?
The FUD lore, because we've already done it. And you know it really upsets me because you have a whole gatekeeping community that's like, now, Sonny, you don't need to shoot that fast.
It's a trained subsection of the populace, just like angry feminists are a trained subsection of the populace to disarm people from human rights is what it is. They grew up, and it's hard to make an argument against them, and that's why they're so effective, because they grew up sporting, they grew up hunting, they grew up doing all these things, and they look at you and they were in the triple canopy bush shooting Viet Cong. So it's hard to be mean to them because they're awesome. A lot of them were peeling grapes, that's for sure. They were peeling grapes one at a time. But so the issue comes to them, whereas they grew up in a time where guns were as free as guns could be. And the problem with most FUDs is that they honestly do not realize how much their firearms are regulated. Mm-hmm. And you have to spend all this time educating them about how much they're not actually allowed to do. And you'll find out, in my experience, I can't speak for anybody else's experience, but 9 times out of 10, you'll find out that when you begin to properly educate the FUD, that they realize that their gun safe and their gun cabinets and under their dining room table and under their living room couch, they are now possessing a lot of felony level equipment and firearms that they're not allowed to have. And they didn't realize
because they can't keep up on the ever changing laws.
Yeah, because they literally just got on the internet 11 minutes ago when they found out that that's how you had to sign up for the McDonald's senior coffee. Now you have to get your discount card.
That's so true, though.
And they don't realize.
I mean, how many people don't realize that their pistol brace is illegal?
It's probably so many.
How many people
they just bought it from a store one day?
How many people went to Bass Pro?
Yeah.
Was like, man, that thing looks cool. I'm going to buy it. And they have no freaking clue.
Mm-hmm.
Because half of the firearms that they own or more were inherited from their father, or they bought at a gun show, and they haven't bought anything for 15, 20 years, back when America was America still a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't realize that you can't just drive on over to the next town when it's gun show season and go home with a Walmart cart of firearms like you used to be able to. They don't realize.
Sounds so great.
Yeah, so you have to spend all this time, and it gets frustrating because the FUD is argumentative. They are argumentative and very
These transdimensional demons.
Yeah, exactly. And then so what happens?
They're turning the freaking frogs gay.
Is people get frustrated with them and they ignore them, and that's exactly what that causes. It causes this whole giant FUD populace to be floating around.
And we love them. That's the thing. We love these guys.
Yeah,
they taught us how to be men.
Yeah,
yeah.
And not all of them.
You can't do everything right, I guess.
I feel like when you tell somebody everybody should own a machine gun, every single person should own a machine gun.
Yeah.
It gives them butterflies inside them. Then they're like, that's ridiculous. But people used to. They used to buy them from Sears and everybody was happy.
But see,
besides the prohibition part, everybody was happy.
We need to get a couple of machine guns and have like informational machine gun shoots.
Well, there's people out there that have their SOTs that manufacture machine guns, and they're trying to get as many people as possible because for people that don't know this, if you go through the right steps through the ATF, you can get a pre-1986 transferable machine gun.
Yeah.
A regular citizen can own one when they jump through all these hoops.
If you can find one.
Oh, they're out there.
They're expensive.
They're just stupid expensive.
If more people had them, then it would be common use, which you see in literature all the time in court cases. Common use. When they're not in common use, it's like, who even has these anyway? Just like suppressors. When they redefined what a suppressor was in the 1986 NFA, they're like, well, these aren't in common use anyway. And really, all they do is make your ears not hurt. But apparently, they're like, they have silencers and they're bad. And then people see this, are like, yeah, silencers are bad. So educating people. And Dustin, I'll let you finish with your thought here. But
which thought?
I don't know. But I just want people to know
Things
that
gone in the wind.
As much as I'm for like completely unregulated, full auto, everything, just as much as it's your civic duty to have one, it's also your duty to learn how to use it.
For sure. I 1 million infinitely. Look, if you own a tractor, you should know how to operate and maintenance that tractor and operate it safely. Same with the firearm, same with a boat, same with a wife. Okay. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. You should know how to operate it and maintenance it correctly, take care of it, and be responsible.
Did you say wife?
I slipped it in there. I thought.
Do we? Is there an instruction manual?
Oh, I got one with mine. Did you not get one?
No.
Oh yeah.
I never read those.
I think it was in Chinese, maybe.
Did you get your wife at Walmart? Is that what it was? I don't know. No.
Probably got it at Target.
Yeah. If you take away the responsibilities of a populace, you create a populace that does not know how to be responsible for anything.
Because they.
Well, that's what we're living in right now.
And you make them rely on
the government.
The government.
Yep. Dad, big government dad. So.
Well,
not cool, government. Not cool.
They told me I had to wear a mask and stay inside, so that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So much money.
I wish you were mandated to have a machine gun. Would you be cool with that if that was a law?
No.
You wouldn't?
I wouldn't be cool.
I don't like the word mandate.
So
encourage, maybe.
Yeah. So let me put
But what if that was a mandate? You need to have a rocket launcher and you need to have a machine gun and 3 grenades, every adult.
I don't think it should be a mandate. How about a different way to look at that? Okay. You have a class of Americans that's semi-preferred. Thank you. In America. Okay. And in most situations, it's not always been great in America, but in most situations nowadays, this is a preferred class, and it's a class of veterans. Okay. You won't find too many people who hate veterans other than your dingbat lefty loons. But these were people that took on that responsibility, took on that challenge, and for the most part are advanced by our civilization. But that was a choice, and they bear the responsibilities of that choice. And as a result of that, they do have a few more rights and access. Gun access and education should be handled in that same way. The government should not mandate that you have it. But if you choose to be a higher caliber of an American citizen and own it and be trained, you should carry with that higher accesses in your society. You should be, this is Tim. Tim went and got trained. Tim's protecting us. He's protecting our civilization. Tim, you get the gun discount on your coffee, bud. Tim, you get the 10% off lumber at Home Depot, bro. You got the gun certification, man. Thanks for looking out for my kids, bro. Mm-hmm. Hey, thanks for checking on my grandmother the other day. I appreciate it. That's how that should. Society should mandate it through reward and behavior, but not through structured law.
Gotcha.
I like that. I know we could talk about this forever, but
all day.
I just want people to know that it's okay. It's okay to like guns. It's okay to want to have your freedoms back. And the Second Amendment wasn't enough, or isn't enough.
It was never enough.
It was never enough.
Yeah, it was always supposed to be just a starting point.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Yeah. So if you want to buy some guns, hit us up at Fire Ridge.
Yep. Located in Belleville, Ohio. Get a hold of us.
Hook you up.
I also want to say thanks to everybody who's been liking, following our stuff, and sending us reviews on Spotify and YouTube. We really appreciate it. That's why we keep doing this for you guys. So if there's anything else you want us to talk about, just let us know. We'll try to get some more guests in here. But
yeah, if you want to come on, shoot us an email.
Hit us up. You have to bring a machine gun or you're not getting on.
Tanks are welcome too.
Yep. All right, guys. And the Fed. See ya.
Later.
See ya.